And this is the Nonprofit Culture Success Broadcast. Russell Dennis speaking. Welcome to another edition. Today, our expert is Roberto Candelaria, author of Relationships Raise Money and creator of such properties as the Sponsorship Bootcamp and Sponsorship 101, which is an introductory program. Roberto, welcome, greetings. Thank you for taking time out to join us and talk with our audience about sponsorship. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and especially about your journey, because a lot of people have done things that aren't really conducive to getting sponsorship, or they see it as something impossible. And
right.
Your journey, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Roberto Candelaria. I'm the founder of Sponsorship Bootcamp and the author of the international best-selling book, Relationships Raise Money, A Guide to Corporate Sponsorship. And before all of that, though, my favorite roles in life is being an uncle, being a dreamer, being a Disney kid at heart, and occasionally enjoying a good glass of red wine because, you know, it's fun and it's relaxing. But when I got into sponsorship, I didn't know what I know now, right? Because whether it be any journey, whether it be starting a nonprofit or starting a business or writing that first book, whenever we start something new, we may have had some information or heard of people that done it, but each one of us have our own journey that leads us to where we're at today and where we're at right now. And for me, my sponsorship journey began in high school. The thing is I didn't even know that it was sponsorship. And I know people are just like, what do you mean you didn't know it was sponsorship? I didn't know it was sponsorship. I don't know anybody that grows up saying, I want to be a professional fundraiser. I don't know anybody saying, I want to go teach companies how to give us money. I didn't know these things, right? What I knew is that I was a kid on a mission. It was my sophomore year of high school, and our choir had the opportunity as part of Magic Music Days to go perform at Walt Disney World as part of Magic Music Days. And back then, you know, like I said, sophomore high school, I didn't know sponsorship. I didn't know business. What I knew is they were trying to get us to do bake sales and selling wrapping paper and selling popcorn. And y'all all probably either had somebody try to sell you, or your kids have had to sell, or you've seen them over at the credit union, those candy bars, the world's finest chocolate, which are not the world's finest chocolate. But, you know, you go sell them for, I think back then we were selling them for $1. I think now they're selling them for $2. And, you know, you used to make like 25 cents off of one of these things. And I remember knowing that we needed to raise about $1,000 per person for this trip to get to Disney, for the park tickets, for the hotel, you know, for all of these things, about $1,000 a student. And I was just thinking, that's a lot of candy bars. At 25 cents, that is a lot of candy bars. And when it comes to bake sales, there's never really a break even because mom's got to go buy everything. We have to make it. We have to buy the saran wrap. We have to buy the Ziploc bags. We're buying everything. But, you know, there's no like when do you actually make money at this type of thing? Because the school doesn't reimburse you for that. It's easier just to write them a check into your account. And so I was walking down the hall and I saw one of these posters, and I know that they're still in campuses today. They've got the sports schedule for like the football team or the volleyball team or the basketball team or the baseball team, the soccer team. And then all around it, there were these boxes with companies' names and their phone numbers. And back then they didn't have the websites on them, but I'm sure they do now. And I just remember thinking, what is all this? And I was talking to my choir teacher. She's like, oh, people pay to be on that calendar. And I was just like, well, would people pay for a choir concert? I didn't know it was sponsorship. I just knew that if they were going to pay for people to be running around a field, hitting each other and knocking each other out, and people having to go to the nurse's office, why wouldn't they pay for something such as art? Why wouldn't they pay for music? And so we went and we started talking to small companies, and lo and behold, they wrote checks. They weren't 25-cent checks, which was awesome. It was $100 here, $500 there, $200 there. And what I realized right away is that when we deliver value to somebody, they're willing to pay us for that value. Now, I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know that this thing was called sponsorship at all. What I knew was, wow, I get to go to Disney. We get to make this happen, and that is awesome. And so we went to Disney. We did the concert, came back, and I started volunteering with nonprofits. Nonprofit volunteerism has been something that's always been huge to me. And ever since I started volunteering in 8th grade, I've also had the opportunity to work for several national, international organizations in my role now as a sponsorship consultant. But going back to those days, it was something where I could show up and I was just helping raise money, which is what also led me to being able to write the book, Relationships Raise Money, because one of the things that I saw in the nonprofit space was this lack of desire to truly like figure out how to build a sustaining donor program. It was all about, okay, we got the check. And then next month they were calling again or emailing again saying, you know what, we need another $25. We need another $50. We need another $100. And I learned a phrase back then called donor fatigue or donor burnout, which is something that nonprofits see because their lack of planning was making it where they had to beg, and yes, beg, for money every single month. They're like, it's a giving program. No, if you wanted somebody to give a check every single month, you would create a sustaining donor program, not say, oh crap, we can't pay the lights this month, let's go ask for another $25. And so it's about the sustainability of the nonprofits. And as I began to see this, and as I began to see donor fatigue and donor burnout, it was about the time that I was starting college, and I had the opportunity to do an internship with the Walt Disney Corporation through their Disney College program. And while there, we had the opportunity to attend Disney Leadership, Disney Branding. Many of you might know that as the Disney Institute or Disney University, and those classes that they offer to executives. I was able to participate in some of those during my internship at Disney. And so one of the things I stopped and I looked at and I learned was, okay, if we can take all of this about loyalty and about branding and about customer experience and about leadership and bring this into the nonprofit space from a fundraising perspective, how could we change the face of giving in America? And that's what led me to open, at that point, a nonprofit corporation that I used to run called the Face of Giving Foundation, as well as write a book called The Face of Giving before I was even doing Relationships Raise Money. And so I want you to hear that the sponsorship piece is so key because it allows nonprofits, if set up properly, if you're working with someone like Russell, who is as a coach for nonprofits and high performance nonprofits, working to help you become sustainable and profitable, because profit is not a bad word in a nonprofit. The only thing that's not profit, right, is your tax status. Because at the end of the day, you still have to pay rent, you still have to pay employees, you still have to pay yourself. And so the only thing that isn't profit is your tax status, but you're still a business. And that's one of the things that I know that Russell teaches with his clients and the people going through his courses and his programs is how to create that sustainable nonprofit. And one of those funding streams is sponsorship. Now, when it comes to sponsorship, people often stop and say, well, Roberto, I can't get sponsored. You don't understand. I'm just starting out. I'm a nonprofit. I'm one person. I sent my 1023 in. I don't even have a yes yet. There's no way I could ask for money. Or I got it, Roberto. I finally got my status. I got my letter from the IRS. But you know what? I don't have a website, and I don't have a following, and I don't have a bunch of volunteers, and so therefore I can't get sponsored. And to that I say, if you believe that you cannot get sponsored, then you are absolutely right. You cannot get sponsored, because there are sponsors out there for first-time properties, because guess what? I got my first sponsor. Russell got his first sponsor. All of my clients got their first sponsors. So whether it's that first date or the first kiss or your first pop or your first international vacation or your first trip to Disney, we all have a first. It's knowing how to put the pieces together so you're able to get that first. And so if you're thinking that there's not sponsorship for first-time organizations, first-time properties, I want you to get that thought right out of your head, because it's just that we haven't taken the time to explain to people why they should partner with us and why they should do this. And so when it comes to sponsorship, I'll start with a basic definition of sponsorship and then talk about the difference between a donation and a sponsorship, because what I find is a lot of nonprofits get the word donation and the word sponsorship confused. And because they get it confused, they're wondering why they get no's. It's because they're not using the right language. And so just like if we were to go off to France, we're going to learn French. If we go off to Mexico or Spain, we're going to learn a little bit of Mexico. If we go to Lebanon, we're going to learn a little bit of Lebanese. We might only learn 2 or 3 phrases, right? But it's the same thing with sponsorship. If we're going to enter into this world that has its own language and its own lingo, we want to make sure that we're using that lingo to be able to help people. And that's why, I know Russell will be sharing the information with y'all later, why we're doing this thing called Sponsorship Jumpstart, so you can learn this. So there's a long dictionary definition of sponsorship. If you want to look it up, I invite you to go over to websters.com or dictionary.com and find it, but I don't like it, so I'm not going to use it. To me, the definition of sponsorship is this. It is having a brand or product or service or company that sees you, that sees your nonprofit, that sees the work that you're doing, and they believe in it. And they believe that if they partner with you, that they could get something in exchange that would help them reach their business goal. And that's what sponsorship is. It's that simple. Like I always say, sponsorship is simple. It's just not easy. And that's why we put products and services and programs together to help you down that path, to make it simple so you don't have to make all the mistakes that we made. Now, when we talk about sponsorship versus donation, I try to make this as simple as can be, because some people think, well, Roberto, you know what? Somebody gave me $1,000 in gift cards. They sponsored us. Well, that depends. Because as a nonprofit, or even if it's a for-profit, right? For-profit, nonprofit, need profit, if somebody gives you $1,000 in gift cards, number one, it could be a gift. It could be, if it's your birthday, it could be a birthday present. They give it to your organization. It could be a donation. And so what a donation is when an organization or company or service or any other foundation gives you a check, a product, a service, a gift, anything that is in kind, and they do not expect anything back in return. Here's the key word: contractually or legally. So what that means is if they give you $1,000 or even a $10,000 and say, man, you know what, Russell, I really like the work you're doing. Here's $10,000, pat on the back, you're doing a good job, keep it up, my friend. Then, that's a donation. However, it could be that exact same thing. Like, you know what, Russell, I love the work you're doing as a high-performance coach for nonprofits, and I want your clients to be able to have more access to you, and therefore, I'm going to help you do ABC. And when you do ABC, one of the things that I want to make sure that happens is that these companies know, that these nonprofits know that I believe in them, and that I've got products and services that can help them, whether that be a website design company, whether it be a graphic design company, whether it be a hotel with a meeting space, whether it be a print shop, whatever it may be. They're saying, you know what, Russell, I really like you, so I'm going to give you that same $10,000. However, in exchange, what I'd like is maybe for you to post my logo a couple places. And could you maybe give me a few minutes of stage time, or if I pre-record a video, could you play that for me? And that is, then you have a lovely little written agreement called a sponsorship agreement, which is a legal document that you both sign that says, hey, when you give me these $10,000, I'm going to give you A, B, C. So you notice they're the exact same amount of money, or the exact same gift cards, or the exact same products or services. The difference is when it's a donation, it's just, hi, here you go. I love you. Keep up the great work, my friend. Where the sponsorship is, I really love what you're doing. And heck, here's a big myth. People believe that in order for somebody to sponsor you, they have to love what you were doing. They don't have to love you or like you. They just have to know that it's going to help their business reach their business goals. And you have to know that it doesn't go against your core values, either as a person or as an organization. They don't have to love you or like you. They have to want access to your target market, and you have to believe that they can ethically do that. And so that's the difference between a sponsorship and donation. I don't know if you've got anything to add or any questions here at this point, Russell, before, or where you want me to go from here.
That's the thing that a lot of people are confused with. I talk about creating win-win-win scenarios with nonprofits. That's for people in your organization, people who get your services, and people who pay. And a sponsor is just another funding source. And it's not good to have all your eggs in one basket, but where a lot of nonprofits fall short, they may not have the confidence or the clarity around it, but it's having a discussion about the value they provide to other people. And when you don't have clarity around that, it doesn't matter whether you're approaching individual donors, whether you're writing a grant, whether you're seeking a sponsorship. If you don't have that clarity, and you're not talking about value in terms that are important to the people you're serving, then right, they get it. And the sponsorship is a strategic partnership. You are offering something of value as a nonprofit. When you go to people and say, I would like a donation, or I'd like to apply for this grant. I want you to sponsor this event or that event. You're not going with your hat in your hand. You are offering value. You're providing service in the community that matters to the company. And companies have all of these goals. And today it's really important for companies to be seen as being socially responsible, because people that work with them and do business with them like to see that they have a heart for social causes. They're socially responsible. So they are out looking for good projects, just like foundations are looking for good projects to send grant money toward. Everybody's looking for good projects.
Something very key. And it's something that's off the topic of sponsorship, but goes to what you work so hard with your clients within the groups that you work with, which is the sustainability of the nonprofit, not having all the eggs in one basket. And so, there's this misnomer within the nonprofit world that the only way that we live is donations. And I mean, it's not even a myth, it's a lie. It's a flat out lie, because there are so many funding sources. Like I said earlier, and I know you and I've talked about together, Russell, the only thing that's different between a for-profit and a nonprofit is that word non, which is the tax status. That's the only absolute difference really between a for-profit and a nonprofit, because just like a nonprofit can do social good, guess what? A for-profit can do social good. Just like a big corporation or even a small business owner has payroll, guess what? A nonprofit has payroll. Just like for-profits have a website, nonprofits have a website. For-profits have to market, nonprofits have to market. And here's the thing, what corporations tend to realize and believe and be able to move forward on is the idea and the belief that all the money does not have to come from one single place. And that's a big mistake that nonprofits make. And as you were talking, I wrote down on a piece of paper here a note to myself, and what I wrote was funding sources, because it's key. See, what happens is people forget. And what they forget that is not just about the donation, especially if they're doing the nonprofit on the side and they still have another job and they want to focus on their nonprofit full time. They still need something that's going to replace that salary, and that doesn't happen with just, give me $5 here, give me $10 here. You know what? I'm going to go cook a fish plate over here, and I'm going to make a chicken dinner over here, and we're going to do a rib dinner once a quarter. That doesn't cut it. You can only make fish plates and chicken plates so long before you have to do something else. And so some of the examples of funding sources for nonprofits are number one, grants. Grants are a huge way for nonprofits to get funding. There are the sponsorships, which are another great avenue, but that's, once again, something different. Sponsorships and grants are two completely different things and two completely different beasts. And I will say that oftentimes, most grants are typically larger than the sponsorship you're going to get when you're first starting. That said, the grant is much harder to get sometimes. There's a lot more paperwork. And then you got to report back to people saying, this is how we spent your money. Where with the sponsorship, it's a business transaction saying, hey, did you give me the value you said you're going to give me? And once again, these are two different funding streams that both might be a fit for your nonprofit. You don't have to pick just one. Another opportunity, like you said, is your donations. There's another stream through events, through gala dinners, through charity programs. There's another funding stream through sustaining donor programs. And, this is a big way that nonprofits leave money on the table. If they would just stop and say, you know what, if I could create a page on my website where people can give $10 a month, $25 a month, $100 a month, whatever that amount is, and make it easy where they can just go there and click a button, guess what? Some people might give you money more often and on a monthly basis, but if it's not an option available to them, they're not going to walk up to you and say, hi, how do I give you $25 every month? We need to make it easy for them to give us money. And if we don't make it easy, don't be crying that you don't have money. And, I know that probably sounds harsh, but that's the importance of a coach. That is the importance of someone that understands nonprofits, that understands sustainability. And that's the importance of having somebody like Russell who's here and wants to coach you and wants to serve you because he understands these funding models and help you decide which funding model is best for you. And I guess one of the other biggest ways that nonprofits forget is that there's an opportunity for funding is creating their own products and services. Your nonprofit can have a book. Your nonprofit can have a training program. Your nonprofit can have CDs and DVDs and flash drives and jump drives. It can have a membership site. It can have a paid newsletter. And these are all products and services that nonprofits forget about or haven't hired a coach that understands how to put these systems into place. And, that's one of the reasons that I love being here with Russell today, because he's a coach that understands this as he guides nonprofit leaders, especially those that want to be high-performing nonprofit leaders, to move forward. And so, sorry about the rant about the funding thing. I'll let you go back to whatever sponsorship question. I just had to cover that because I think that's so important for nonprofits to understand. You don't got to put your eggs in one basket. And there are so many ways to make money. And just because you don't know it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
No, it's very important to use all of the tools available. And people don't understand that if they have a message and it doesn't resonate with anyone other than their internal staff, it's not going to go anywhere. So your message has to articulate value in the terms that the person you're approaching, whether that's the government, a private foundation, individual donor, you're looking to create planned giving, which is another animal. You need a lot of relationship building for planned giving. And so that's another subject. But 80% of grant proposals that go into one source or another don't get funded. And a lot of times the people are not eligible. They haven't followed the instructions in the process. You get eliminated just from not following the directions, But those that do win grants and win other sources of funding, over time, they start with a small project, then they build. They have a track record of success. And sponsorship is something you can grow the same way. You cultivate sponsors the same way you cultivate donors, and you give them reasons to support you on a higher level. So it's all a business transaction. Even if it's a grant, it's still a business transaction because you're explaining that value. So talk a little bit about the importance of the process, honoring the process, because just like anything else, getting a sponsorship is a process. So talk a little bit about what that looks like, and maybe give some examples that you've seen with people who've done it very badly, made a mess of it, and people who have been successful even on their first try because they followed a step-by-step process. Walk us through that.
Oh, absolutely. I was laughing because I have seen several not so pretty ones, and I'll be the first to say, including some of mine when I first started, because now having worked with over $18 million in sponsorship, it wasn't that pretty when it started. There was a lot of no's. There was very few yeses. And there were days that I was just like, why the heck am I doing this? I might as well just quit because nobody's telling me yes like I want to hear. So like, why do I keep doing this? And I remember going to my dad one day. My dad worked for the federal government, but before going back to the federal government, retiring there, he was a sales man for IBM. And I remember my dad telling me, son, the only difference between you and me is that I've heard a lot more no's than you. And for some reason that really stuck in with me that day and where I was in sponsorship. And I was just like, you know what? That's right. That's right. And so I actually went back to some of the people that had told me no. And this is a lesson not just in sponsorship, but also in other areas of business or in leadership. I went back to some of those people that said no and said, you know what? I'm not trying to get money from you. I know you told us no. Could you give me a bit more information on why you told us no? Is there something that we could do to be a better fit? Is there something that we could have done to clarify the value better? And as soon as I started to go back and to talk to these people that had told us no and figure out why they had told us no, what we found was, you know what? There's a pattern here. They're telling us no for the same reasons. And if I'd never taken the time to stop and go back, I wouldn't have learned. And I share that because I want you to know that I made mistakes in my journey too. And you know what? To this day, I still make mistakes because I'm human. So I will say that one of the biggest mistakes that I see, I'll name three big mistakes that I see people make is number one, they show up with their, like you said, like their hand out. They're just like, hi, I actually had somebody actually in my inbox, whether that be social media or email, the question I get more than anything. In fact, right now, we've got a lot of people joining my Facebook group, and one of the things they got to do is answer some questions. And one of the questions is, what's your number one question about sponsorship? And I'll tell you, the number one question that people are asking me is, what's the fastest way to get a sponsor? I'm going to tell you the fastest way to get a sponsor is to call your mama or your daddy or go to the ATM, because that's not the way that sponsorship works. They're not there to say how fast they can give you a check. They're there to see how fast they can reach their business goals. And when we show up saying, help me, help me, help me, they're just like, help me, help me, help me. And so they need to know how it works for them. And so the biggest mistake I said is just showing up with, hi, what's in it for me, as opposed to what's in it for you as a company, what's in it for you as a brand. Because just like you're saying, what's in it for me, they're asking that too. The difference is they got the checkbook. And so we want to make sure that that conversation is very much, okay, what's in it for them? How are we having a conversation that helps them, guides them, serves them? One of the next big mistakes I see is that people do not ask for enough. And I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive to some people. They're like, well, but if it's cheap, then they're going to buy it. No, people are not going to buy it because it's cheap. If you walk in and saw, I don't know, two houses, let's say there's two houses, they're the exact same two houses, they're right next to each other, same carpet, same builders, same tiles, same amenities, same everything, but one of them cost $100,000 less than the other. Now I know there's always the smart butt. It says, oh, I'd take the ones $100,000 cheaper. But you know what? You wouldn't do it before you questioned it. You wouldn't do it before you got a home inspection. You wouldn't do it before you got an appraisal. You wouldn't do it before you got a survey. You wouldn't do it before you walked to the house. You wouldn't do it before you got the foundation inspected. Now, it's easy to say, yeah, for $100,000 less, I'd take it, but not before you did your due diligence. And guess what? Just like that, when people are sending in sponsorship proposals offering certain value, and when one brand is saying, ooh, we're going to do all of this for you, but we need a $15,000 sponsorship, and then you show up offering all the same benefits saying we're going to do it all for $2,500, they're not going to do the due diligence on you because they already know what an industry standard is, and they're going to stop and say, yeah, they don't even know what the heck they're doing. Like, it's just one of the proven ways to be a ranked amateur with sponsorship is just to not know how to charge because you charge too little. But this also carries over to this mindset of entitlement that a lot of nonprofits have, that people just need to give us something because we have a 501c3. No, nobody owes you nothing. Nobody owes you nothing as a nonprofit. What you owe as a nonprofit is to show people value, to show them opportunities so that they can help you reach their goals while reaching theirs at the exact same time. And I'd say that another big don't and a mistake that people make is that it is the, kind of going back to number one, is we've all heard the phrase in business, and if not, you're about to hear it right now. And actually, not even in business, I remember hearing this from my mom and dad several times during life, that a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. And so a big mistake that I see people make in looking at getting sponsored or even any type of funding is they wait to the very last minute and they say, oh crap, we in trouble. We need some help and we need it now. So what I invite you to do instead is to take time to create a budget, know that budget, and know how you're going to hit your financial goals with or without sponsorship. Because one of the things that these brands want to know is that whether they give you a check or not, that you're going to go do this anyways. They don't want to know that they're 100% on the line for the success of this and you have absolutely zero skin in the game. And so we want to show them this is something that we're going to do anyways and have a cohesive plan. Now, do they need to see your exact budget? Most sponsors, no. Grants, yes. Two different things. But what they want to know is how they're going to get the return on investment. So if you tell them you're getting this much social media or this many impressions on this, or that you're going to have exposure to X, or that we can get you media here, what they want to know is how are you going to make that happen? And did you price it fairly? So I think those are some of the biggest don'ts as well as some of the do's. And I say that getting into the process here because the process is so important. And that's why I'm taking time for the first time in my career, really, to do something like Sponsorship Jumpstart. And I know that Russell's going to be able to get y'all a link to get information to be able to do this. But, I created my book, Relationships Raise Money, in 2011. We put out our first online course, the Sponsorship Roadmap, in 2012. And Sponsorship Bootcamp came to fruition in 2011. So now 2017, we're now into 6 years of running this live event of teaching for-profits and nonprofits how to get sponsored. And my clients have worked with BMW, Dell, Disney, State Farm Insurance. They've worked with the WWE. They've worked with Bell Helicopter. I've got somebody that even recently was featured by Walt Disney World. Yes, Disney, like the Walt Disney World, on their Facebook account, on their Twitter account, on their Instagram account, and on a separate Disney Instagram account, the Disney Dream Big Princess Instagram account, because she learned how to get sponsored. And so that's about the process. And like Russell said, there is a proven process. There is a roadmap. There is a system, which is why we're taking time to do Sponsorship Jumpstart. And so what we're asking is that you give us less than 30 minutes a day for 5 days to learn how to be able to do this. And so on day one, we're really going to talk about what sponsorship is. And so that it's not even, like, oh, I want to get sponsored, but we start here. And I know some people are going to tell me, Roberto, that's so basic. It's so basic. It's important to be basic sometimes, to understand the foundation, because if we go in asking for a sponsorship, but what we're really seeking is a donation, the answer is going to be no, or vice versa. So it's important to understand the basic foundations of what sponsorship is, and also to understand the lingo and the language that these people are using, so that as we share, we know what words to use with them, so we don't get a no just because we used the wrong word or the wrong sentence or the wrong language. You wouldn't, go to France and ask how to find the bathroom in Spanish. And at the same thing, you don't want to go into a sponsor and ask for something not using the property language and the lingo that they use within sponsorship. Then on day two, we're going to talk about sponsors for you. And so whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit, we're going to talk about how that fits, because there's a lot of people that believe sponsorship is only for nonprofits. Now, if you're here with Russell's audience, you are most likely a nonprofit, so that's a good thing because you already think sponsorship's for you. But there's those of you that might be executives or maybe even board members or advisory board members thinking, yeah, Roberto, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I can't get a sponsorship because I'm not a nonprofit. And on day two, we talk about who is getting sponsored. And I'm going to tell you, you don't have to be a nonprofit, and it's going to surprise you the things that you could actually have sponsored, which is why on day three, we're going to talk about what you can get sponsored. Because even if you're looking at doing something like an event, right? Well, even with an event, you could have your stage time sponsored, registration sponsored, you could have swag bag sponsored, you could have breakout speaker sponsored, you could have breakfast, lunch, dinner, AM, PM breaks and meals sponsored, you could have your audio visual sponsored, you can have social media lounges sponsored, there's the Wi-Fi sponsored, there's so many things that get sponsored within an event or within anything within your sponsorship property that you want to get sponsored. So that's why day three, we're going to talk about what you can get sponsored, and I guarantee you it's a lot more than you think. Then on day four, Sponsorship Jumpstart, we're going to take some time and actually share with you, okay, here's who to call. And notice that the word was call. It wasn't go to the online form. It wasn't fill out this spreadsheet. It was who to call. Because just like we used to go back to the payphones back in the day and dial 1411 or 411, and the operator would be like, hey, directory assistance, how can I help you? I want to teach you how to do that with sponsorship so that you don't have to fill out the dreaded online form that goes into the twilight zone or the black hole. And then on day five, once you know what you're going to get sponsored and what sponsorship is and how it works for you and how to find this company and how to get hold of them, right? On day five of Sponsorship Jumpstart, we're going to be telling you, okay, here's what to send them. Here's what goes in your proposal. Here's what letters you send them. And here's how you actually make sure that you get the check to go to your bank account. And so that's the importance of Sponsorship Jumpstart. And I know that Russell's going to be able to get y'all links for that information. And so, in talking about Sponsorship Jumpstart, that is the process is, what do you want to get sponsored? Who are they sponsoring? What do you have to offer them? How do you find this person? You find this person, and then you send them the information, the sponsorship letter, your sponsorship proposals, your sponsorship agreements, but more importantly, what goes in those, right? So that you can get to a yes, so that you get the check to go into your bank account. And so I know Russell will get you all the information on Sponsorship Jumpstart. And also, like I said, that's the process. It's just that for the first time in my career, I'm actually going to block out about 30 minutes a day for 5 days to teach this for absolutely free for the first time ever. So I hope y'all can join us for this.
Well, I'm looking forward to tuning in on Sunday. And for those of you that don't know, I actually went to the last sponsorship boot camp from May 31st through April 2nd. And it was a wonderful event. And I'm working on putting some of the wonderful things that I learned into practice with programs I'm working on for you. And so the information on the registration is on the Nonprofit Culture Success Facebook page. And I put a link in the chat here, bit.ly.com, NPCS Jumpstart is the URL I have here. And that'll be up on all of our feeds. And you hit some really important points. I've seen a lot of projects fall apart over the budget because people didn't know how much things costed. And all of these companies are starting to understand that it's important to be seen as being socially responsible. It's hedging a bet for reputation management, because it takes years to build a reputation, and then 5 minutes of bad verbiage on social media can trash a reputation you spent.
Ooh, not even 5 minutes, just 5 words.
It can trash a reputation that you took years to build. So it's by building this goodwill over time and finding good projects to kick in that these people find value. So you have value to offer these people, but you got to understand what it costs. And here's some dirty words: return on investment. People don't like that. And there's a gentleman by the name of Tom Rausser that wrote a couple of books, ROI for Nonprofits and Asking Rights. And the premise of Asking Rights was he was standing in front of a funder at one of his first projects, and the gentleman asked him, "Why should I give you money?" And so he was stumped by that. And so there's that whole process that we talk about in the 4 steps to building a high-performance nonprofit, to talk about why somebody should give you money and what you have in place. And you have to be transparent about where you are. I mean, sometimes things can go wrong, but if you're talking about some of the possible challenges and how you're going to handle them, you're being transparent. And as entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, we're the eternal optimists. And my experience has been that everything takes 3 times as much time, 3 times as much effort, and 3 times as much money
at least
as we thought that it was going to take when we started putting the whole thing together. So you have to keep that type of thing in mind. One of the things, though, that I find that's important, because it's the process after you have taken time to learn it, and Roberto teaches the whole process masterfully. It's a time investment, but the key is to try to talk to the right people. If you're targeting the right sources instead of doing something scattershot, your chances of coming up with the funds or with the partnership are going to increase a little more, because if people really aren't interested in what it is that you're doing, they're not going to respond. So talk a little bit about that, Roberto, about the importance of targeting the right sponsors and some of the things that you actually would do in that process. I know we'll cover more in the course,
right, but
just list those things that will increase your chances if you target it.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's why we, going back to the 5-day jumpstart, it's why we're putting it on day 4. Because there's so much that comes before. Who do we go to? Because what happens if you find that right person and when we're unable to clearly describe and define who we are and what we do and how they get, like Russell said, some people consider it a dirty word, that return on investment. And so it's important that's why we're putting this in day 4, not day 1. Yes, we're talking about the sponsorship proposal on day 5, not day 1, because how can you write a sponsorship proposal if you don't even know what they're looking for yet? And so in terms of who to find, there's a few different areas. One of my favorite tools and once again, absolutely free. Y'all gonna learn I love free stuff, is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it's taking time to learn your market and learn the brands. And so, typically when you're looking for somebody, you're gonna be looking for a brand manager, you'd be looking for a marketing manager, or you'd be looking for somebody within organizational development. And I know that, that sounds general in some ways, and you're probably saying, well, Roberto, but you didn't say the sponsorship department. You never call the sponsorship department. It's a voicemail box. Mm-hmm. It's a voicemail box, and you're going to end up in a voicemail competing with everybody else leaving a voicemail. And unless you really have your 10 or 15 second elevator pitch down to like, everybody's like, wow, that's the best thing I've ever heard, and you can do it in less than 10 to 15 seconds, you don't want to be in that voicemail box. What you want to be is on the phone with a brand manager, a marketing manager, or somebody from organizational development. And specifically for nonprofits, a fourth division that you might want to be talking to is community outreach and volunteerism, because most large corporations have sections within company where they're looking to go out and volunteer. They're looking for employees to go out and to volunteer in the community. And when they volunteer, they oftentimes bring a check with that volunteerism. And so it's an easy way to get sponsored by allowing their corporation to help serve you. Another reason for organizational development, especially those that are or are not nonprofits, but if you're a nonprofit and if you do something with health and wellness or postpartum depression or anything that could help a corporate employee, guess what? You want to be talking to organizational development. And the other reason that we say human resources is because, like I said, you call sponsorship, you can end up in the black hole. If organizational development's not interested in you right away, well, guess who knows where every single employee in the corporation works based on job? Hello, human resources. They do all the paperwork, they pay them. So that's the other reason I like going to human resources, where most people don't. That's one of my favorite places to go.
One of our good friends, Mike Fitz, talks a lot about the power of snail mail, and it's almost forgotten. Where you get a guy like me that's been around forever and a day, we still know about the licking stamps thing. But yeah, a lot of people have relied on electronic media and don't spend a lot of time with sending things through the mail. And so I think that's an important piece. And there's a little bit of an approach to that I'm looking forward to hearing you talk more about on when we begin this weekend. But actually taking time to do this all in phases. It's not, my name's Russell Dennis. I'm a great guy and I can help you a whole lot. All you need to do is send me $10,000 and everything will be wonderful. And stick that in the mail. Or I need help. We got to save these zebras. There are going to be a lot of dead zebras. If you don't want that on your conscience, you better send me a check for 25 grand here and get that in the mail. So how many times have you seen people write letters like that and just push them out the door without really stopping to think about building a relationship? Because it really is you wrote the book on it. Relationships raise money, and people walk in the door and they're immediately into the ask without even knowing whether the person is.
Yeah, I would say, and a good 95 to 97% of the people that don't work with me, and I would say of the people that work with me, probably 5 to 10% because they don't want to take the extra 5 minutes to get to learn something about somebody. I believe that even without working with me, anybody can go get sponsored once. I believe that anybody that's doing something legal and sees value can get sponsored without working with me. And you know what? That's fine. What I also know is that without building the proper relationships, people stay at those $100 and $1,000 checks, and they can't add the zeros to make it a $10,000 or $100,000 check. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing, because I tell you, with one or two fine-tuning pieces there, it's very easy to make 5,000, 50,000. It's very easy to make 2,500, 25,000. It's very easy to make 1,000, 10,000, and 10,000, 100,000 if you know the process to go out and effectively build relationships and follow a proven roadmap. And One of the things is, even along the process, the people that are in my Facebook group, the people that, especially the people that work with me privately, they get to learn what happens when you hit that detour. So just like you can go to Google Maps or Waze or whatever app you use, I personally use Waze, but you go in and you map it, and it's like, it takes this long to get to this destination. And it's like, in 10 miles, turn this way, da da da. But then, it stops and it'll be like, like, police reported ahead in half a mile, and be like, hazard on road on the right, and and it keeps rerouting us. And that's the importance of having that coach, because even if there's a proven roadmap and a proven system, not every single journey is going to be exactly the same. So just like when they went out and they made the map of how do you get from Austin to Denver, they made that map going to Austin, Denver, but you know what? But some days there might be construction, and that construction might be on different types of days. Some days there, unfortunately, might be a car accident on the road, and it wasn't there when they made that map. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to be there. It might take a few minutes or a few hours to clear. But when you go in, 60 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour down that highway, you want to know if there's a detour coming up. And that's the importance of having a coach. That's the importance of Sponsorship Jumpstart. That's the importance of having someone like myself mentoring you through your sponsorship journey. And that's the importance of, if you're looking like, okay, my nonprofit's here, I'm not getting where I want to be, that's the importance of a high-performance nonprofit coach such as Russell to guide you through those detours when you get to those roadblocks and it says road closed, and you're just like, crap, what do I do now? That's the importance of having somebody that can look down and has that 20, 30,000 foot view, but has also been on the ground marching right before you, so they know what's there before you even get there.
And one of the big features is persistence. You have to be persistent at doing this. It's like anything else, particularly if you're new. Nobody knows who you are. So you have to keep at them and be persistent. And, here's the thing, the word no is not personal. Most people are their own favorite subject. And that happens with corporations. And they have their own set of interests. Yes, they may like your call. They may not even like your calls, but people don't really have to like you to write you a check. And that's wonderful. That check is going to work the same as long as their bank account's in order to keep, unless you were in California during the recession, you probably got an IOU from the state printed on check quality paper. But they were thinking about you. But it's no, it's not personal, and a lot of times it's a numbers game. And if you've got worthwhile causes, there's some worthwhile causes that I'm fighting for right now. Rise Beyond Dreams is one of them. The Center for Healing by Design, the Sock It to 'em Sock campaign, and they're making all sorts of strides working with the homeless. Impact Locally, Travis Smith is doing wonderful work here in Denver. He's collecting clothing items and hygiene items for the homeless. Celebrated 7 years just this past Sunday. I got to be there, and we assembled 900 lunches in the space of about 30 minutes. And once we went out to distribute them, we ran out of lunches in about 10. And there were people that were still looking. So there's a lot of need out there. The government's not going to do it. It's just people. He does it with an all-volunteer force, and he knows how to mobilize the people because he knows what's valuable, what's important. And he spent time building those relationships. He's got sponsors. He's got some grant money. He doesn't take a salary. He's been blessed through business. And so he does this, and there are people out here who do that. Not everybody's in that position, but if you're providing value, sponsorship is an important key for getting support. People don't always have to write us checks because there are things that are in kind. There could be pro bono services, and so that's something that can be approached in similar ways. But when you're sort of high performance and you know how to state your value with clarity and power, as that fourth step of being a high performance nonprofit, in the terms that are important to people, you can attract everything from your internal board members to sponsors to people to do pro bono, and different things are right for different situations. Pro bono is something that's good for long term. It's not good for something you need yesterday. That's it's not a good use. And oftentimes sponsorship isn't either. It depends on your event and the size of it. But when you approach people that it's a fit for, you increase your chances. But you just have to keep going. So I'm really excited about this weekend, because I know that people are going to be exposed to the power of the programs that you offer. And I've seen people that are working with you who are getting marvelous results. I'm applying some of those tools, we're working on applying some of those tools, because we can have things sponsored. So just a thought, a lot of nonprofits now have some sort of revenue generating activity as a major part of what they're doing. Talk about how sponsorship can help them with that.
Sponsorship is one of the things, so like we talked about earlier here today at the very beginning, we talked about different types of funding sources, whether it be grants, whether it be products, whether it be services, whether it be events. There is always a way that the groups could be bringing in money. I'm not going to say should, because it's up to you if you want to or not. I'm saying could, because the opportunities are there to be able to do it. And one of the things that sponsorship does is, if you have an event, awesome, you get to add the power of sponsorship to it. If you add grants because there's a certain work or project that you want to be able to do, guess what? Even though that's funded by grants, you can still have sponsorship come in and support it so it can be even bigger. If, for those of you that might have buildings, you can have a wing sponsored. You could have a room sponsored. For those of you that are doing events, like I said, there's over 100 different things just within an event. Like whether that be a gala, whether that be a workshop, whether it be whatever the event be, there's always at least 100 different types of things within an event that could be sponsored. It's just knowing what those things are. And so even if you're making revenue through ticket sales, even if you're making revenue through a silent auction, there's still all these things that could be sponsored, which allow you to increase the revenue from that one project, from that one event, from that, whatever service it may be, that allows you then, because you made that additional revenue because of sponsorship, be able to serve more people and make the difference that you wanted to make when you started this nonprofit in the first place.
Yeah, that's wonderful stuff. I've got that list, and it's just remarkable. I looked at that and I thought, wow. And 100 things, that's a lot. There's a lot of things that people won't necessarily consider. So, one of the things I want to mention about this 5-day Jumpstart program, the link is in the chat. It's bit.ly.com NPCS Jumpstart. You need to register. You can kind of go in and look, but there are some handouts that come with this program for you to follow along and take notes on that have really important information. And you must register to get those handouts. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that. So it's really important to have this information. That, I don't think people today need more information. They just need somebody to help them make sense of the information. And there are a few topics that are as broad as sponsorship. And whether you're looking for sponsorships or grants, there's a way to do it. You can do it. You can do it well, or you can do it poorly. And if it's done poorly, people will not even look at it. So it's tough enough to get around the gatekeepers. So it's really important for you to come to this workshop and attend as much of it, attend all of it, if you can, to at least understand what it is that you need to do. Because I'm in an Optimist Club here in town, and they voluntold me that I'm going to be the next president of the local chapter, the Optimists. And so people do a lot of door-to-door, and some of them are successful. They built those relationships, and that's why they can return to these businesses repeatedly. The same people support them, understand, know, and love their work. We've got a great network here around town. And there are a lot of people that are going to support my efforts here and make sure that we succeed as a group. And so that's important, is being able to succeed as a group. Now, if you have a small organization and you're a little worried about this, there are probably people who are doing work that's similar to the work you're doing, or complementary. They've got some complementary skills. You're good at one thing and they're good at another. There's nothing that says that you can't partner with another nonprofit or another organization together to go get a sponsorship, because it increases the number of people you have access to, which is always of interest to a sponsor. They want to know if you've got a group of potential customers. They want, if people see Skyline Widgets, for example, buying thousands of pairs of socks for the homeless and sponsoring a gala event, people may think of Skyline Widgets when they're making their next widget purchase. So that's something that they factor in, these sponsors. So it's value. It's what's important to them. What is it that they want? It's that platinum rule: serve other people the way they want to be served. This has been a very short hour. We're coming up on an hour already. It's amazing how time flies when you're having fun. I know it's a holiday weekend, but if you're a nonprofit, if you're watching this, you're a nonprofit and you're out here and you want ways to fund your nonprofit, and you've never thought about sponsorship, or you had a crack at it and it has gone poorly, you don't want to miss this series. It's a few minutes out of your day to get some very, very valuable information. People pay Roberto loads of money to help put large campaigns together. He's done this through trial and error and now has become very successful at it. And he still has a huge heart where he just wants to give and give and give. And that's what he does. He continues to give, continues to mentor, continues to teach. This is a course that will maybe open up your mind towards sponsorship, because I know a lot of organizations think of grants and they don't think of other things. So this is something else you're capable of doing. And so, Roberto, what sort of closing thoughts do you want to have before you want to offer the group before we sign off?
So closing thoughts is, as you know, Russell, I love Disney. As you see, there's Disney back there. There's Disney all over my office. And one of my favorite Walt Disney quotes is that you can build, dream, and create the most wonderful place in the world, but it takes people to make the dream a reality. And, everybody that's watching this, whether live or on a replay, one of the things I know is that you probably started the nonprofit to make a difference, to make an impact, and to have some sort of influence, whether it be a personal reason or a social cause, or just an injustice that you saw and you said, you know what, I really want to have some influence in this area and make a difference. So I love that quote because, like I said, you can build, dream, and create the most wonderful place in the world, but it takes people to make the dream a reality. And I say, why not let sponsors be those people, and with that sponsorship, with that cash infusion, be able to get your message and your mission out there in a bigger way so you can have the impact, influence, and income that you want for your nonprofit organization.
That's it. People are the real currency of change. People are the real currency of anything that you want to do. And I know we talk about money, but if you don't have the right people behind you, it's all going to fall apart, whether they're internal or they're out there paying for those services. So once again, it's been a great hour, Roberto. bit.ly.com NPCS Jumpstart. Go there to register and take some time out of your day over the course of this weekend. You'll be amazed at how much you can learn in a very short period of time. And that's the power of the tools that Roberto uses. So my thanks again to you, Roberto, and my thanks to all of you out here in my audience. And this broadcast will be up for you to view, along with links to register for the 5-day sponsorship Jumpstart. You don't want to miss this if you're thinking about getting sponsors. And if you haven't thought about getting sponsors, join us anyway, because that may change your mind if it's something that you thought is not for me. Again, Roberto, blessings, many thanks. I look forward to seeing you this weekend on the 5-day sponsorship Jumpstart. This is Russ Dennis at Nonprofit Culture Success. Signing off. Anything else, Roberto?
Have an awesome day. We'll see you there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining me again on the Nonprofit Culture of Success. We will see you this weekend on the 5-day sponsorship jumpstart.
Is it this weekend?